As the Supreme Court confirmation hearings get underway, Arizona voters are divided on whether or not it should be happening before the election.
Plus, how local advocates hope to make the change from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day permanent.
And COVID vaccine concerns, why some people still have reservations about the rush to return to normal life. We break it down later this half hour.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Dylan McKim.
And I'm Mackenzie Allen Charmley. Thank you for joining us. Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Judge Amy Coney Barrett are underway as members of the Senate Judiciary Committee begin to make the case for or against her confirmation. The timing is critical. With the election just 22 days away, Democrats are furious over the election year appointment, while Republicans say they are following through with their responsibility. And as Sean Rice reports, Arizona voters are divided.
The lines have been drawn. Senate Republicans want to fill the vacant seat before the election, while Senate Democrats want to wait until after the votes have been tallied in November. What hangs in the balance is a potential 6-3 conservative advantage in the nation's highest court. President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, appearing today before the Senate Judiciary Committee for the first day of confirmation hearings.
The person appearing before this committee is in a category of excellence.
Since the announcement of her nomination, Barrett has been the center of a political firestorm.
This is going to be a long, contentious week.
The divisiveness evident from the start of the hearings.
Why are Senate Republicans so afraid to give the American people a voice about the future of the Supreme Court?
Republicans are following the Constitution and the precedent. It seems Democrats would rather just ignore both.
With the election just 3 weeks away, Republicans are eager to confirm her expeditiously, but Democrats are still crying foul over the speed of the process.
Senate Republicans are pressing forward, full speed ahead, to consolidate a court that will carry their policies forward.
And over the nominee, as Barrett's conservative allies are likely to ensure a conservative majority on the court, which could endanger key Democratic priorities.
The future of the Affordable Care Act and so many other issues hanging in the balance. Voting rights, civil rights, the right to privacy and choice.
But Republicans say she has the qualifications to be an ideal Supreme Court justice.
At the end of this process, you will be confirmed to the United States Supreme Court.
Arizona voters are split on whether they believe Coney Barrett should be confirmed before or after the election. In a poll by High Ground, the numbers reflect this, with 43.5% saying definitely yes and 43.3% saying definitely no. Douglas Cole, Chief Operating Officer of High Ground, outlined how Arizona's polling reflects our country nationally, with Maricopa County more split and rural Arizona more decided.
Both coasts, the right and left coast, tend to be more progressive, and nationally our polling not to move forward. But the flyover country, middle America, are saying move forward. And so our rural areas here in Arizona are kind of acting like middle of America, the flyover country, where they strongly support moving forward with the Supreme Court nomination, while our two metropolitan areas are acting like our two coasts.
The confirmation hearings are expected to last 4 days. And once they are concluded, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell will likely move the nomination to the Senate floor for a vote sometime in October. In the Broadcast Center, Sean Rice, Cronkite News.
As for election 2020, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals took an emergency hearing as to whether or not the court-ordered extension of Arizona's voter registration deadline should remain in place. Two advocacy groups sued to extend the deadline to October 23rd, Mi Familia Vota and the Arizona Coalition for Change. Secretary of State Katie Hobbs first decided not to appeal, since the decision only affects this election year. But yesterday, she changed course and filed an appeal saying making such a major change so close to the election would create extra work for county recorders. In the filing, she asked that a compromise date of October 16th be accepted by all parties. A hearing on the matter took place earlier this evening, and we'll continue to bring you this latest on this issue as it develops.
Governor Doug Ducey recently signed a proclamation officially recognizing today, October 12th, as Indigenous Peoples Day in Arizona. I spoke with local Indigenous organizations about the impact of this long-awaited proclamation.
October 12th in Arizona has typically been recognized as Columbus Day. However, this year, Indigenous Peoples Day has officially been signed into proclamation by Governor Ducey. a proclamation that has been fought in legislation for decades prior. Dylan Baca is the president of the Indigenous Peoples Initiative, which is a youth-led organization that works to combat the stereotypes that plague Native Americans. While Ducey's recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day is a step forward in the right direction, Baca knows there is much more to be done for Indigenous advocacy.
Indigenous Peoples Day alone will not solve all problems on reservations. It won't eliminate every instance of discrimination or poverty on reservations and so forth. What it works to do is bring accurate representation to an often marginalized community.
While Indigenous Peoples Day is meant to honor Native Americans, some Indigenous community members feel that they don't need a set day to honor their Native heritage.
There's a proclamation saying it's Indigenous Day. My first thought is it's Indigenous Day every day. Let me go back to that it's Indigenous Day. We get to celebrate being Indian, and the world gets to know that, it's prideful to be Indigenous. We have reason to be prideful that there's our food, our language, our songs, our culture, our traditions, our connection to everything.
The organization Native Americans for Community Action originally began to serve as a voice for the Native community with the goal to support and empower the Indigenous people of Arizona. With this new proclamation, Dallas hopes Indigenous Peoples Day will encourage understanding and appreciation of Native culture from the general public.
Others looking at Indigenous Day who are non-Indigenous and celebrating the day with us just brings them closer and to more understanding of what Indigenous culture, Indigenous tribal practices, ceremonies, thoughts, perspectives, so many factors, so many facets of being Indigenous.
While Columbus Day is still recognized on October 12th, Baca and the Indigenous Peoples Initiative strive to make Indigenous Peoples Day a permanent holiday in Arizona. Mackenzie Allen Charmley, Cronkite News.
While the cities of Phoenix and Flagstaff previously recognized Indigenous Peoples Day, the proclamation mandates the celebration of the day on a statewide scale.
Arizona's largest school district resumed in-person learning today. Mesa Public Schools got the go-ahead from state health metrics on Friday to bring students back to the classroom 5 days a week. Students will still be expected to conduct mandatory health screenings daily, including temperature checks and self-assessments for symptoms. The district is allowing students who opted for virtual learning to remain online.
A new documentary on Netflix has brought the conversation around the mental health effects of social media to the forefront. Cronkite News reporter Tyler Mannion went beyond the film to find out what the science is saying.
The physical struggles caused by the COVID-19 pandemic have been well documented around the country. But psychologists are saying the longest lasting pain from all this might be less visible.
On the mental health front of things, if we don't take care of business now, it's going to look far worse in the future. And this could be the longest lasting impact of COVID-19.
Before the pandemic, adolescents were surrounded by familiar faces in schools. But just like that, those familiar faces disappeared, and they were all alone in quarantine, with social media as their only form of positive or negative mental reinforcement.
So that primitive part of my brain, I'm not getting as much stimulation, and so that might make me feel less happy, more sad, more disconnected, more isolated, and lead to that kind of rise in feeling depressed.
The Social Dilemma is a popular new documentary on Netflix that explores this topic, specifically with a look into the rise in suicide for teen and preteen girls in the last decade.
The older teen girls, 15 to 19 years old, they're up 70% compared to the first decade of the century. The preteen girls, who have very low rates to begin with, they are up 151%. And that pattern points to social media.
Tao Ha, an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology at ASU, has been conducting research throughout the pandemic on youth mental health and relationships, and does not agree that society should claim social media has a direct negative effect.
From the most recent research, it actually shows that there is actually very low correlations indicating that social media use is not necessarily related to mental health.
In a study currently under review, Ha and her team found that social media is actually helping young couples.
It's a way for them to connect. It's a way for them to feel part of a group with their friends. It's also a way to feel connected with their romantic partner who they might not be able to see because of COVID.
Although she's found data showing its benefits, the possible downfalls are apparent, and her scientific conclusion remains up in the air.
It's way too early to actually say that it's either good or it's either bad. And I think the conclusion eventually, years and years down the road with more research, is going to be very nuanced.
While the experts disagree on whether or not correlation can be claimed just yet, they all agree it's a conversation that needs to be had. In the studio, Tyler Mannion, Cronkite News.
From a pandemic to wildfires, farm workers have not had it easy. Coming up next on Cronkite News, how they're being affected by smoke during the summer harvest season.
And maybe you can't feel it in the valley, but fall is arriving up north. How the Grand Canyon is transitioning to the cooler weather when Cronkite News returns.
Ready to watch the best of PBS anytime, anywhere, on nearly any device? It's easy with the free PBS Video app. Simply download the PBS Video app on your mobile or streaming device. Now you can watch the latest PBS episodes or catch up on the shows you missed. Discover new favorites from PBS and local content from your PBS station.
Hey, I'm Rick Steves. You know, I don't go anywhere without my passport. Thanks to PBS Passport, you can watch all my travel specials. This exclusive streaming service is just for our members. Not only can you see all my shows, but you can see thousands of hours of your favorite public television shows. Become a member today.
Here we go, lights up. Whoa.
As artists, we conduct our educations in public. You can never know whether it's going to be a success. One just has to risk it.
It's you and the work and the place. It's a very particular relationship.
Here's our lens. Tell us what you think.
Friday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
Every day I wake up, my first thought is, how can I serve this community?
The biggest hurdle was not taking PTSD personally.
Would you welcome, please, the amazing.
Everybody that watches this, they say that I am the greatest that they've ever seen.
California residents have definitely seen it all this year, from the global pandemic of COVID-19 to the threatening wildfires all throughout the state. Cronkite News reporter Patty Vicente caught up with one group of essential workers that continue battling through it all and even more.
California residents haven't been able to catch a break the past couple of months, but some essential workers, farm workers across the Southwest have been dealing with their own obstacles. Amid the global pandemic and raging wildfires, their own workplace pose challenges.
Veronica Mota has worked in agriculture for 20 years, picking strawberries, grapes, cucumbers, and blueberries from California to Washington. Like many farm workers, she has faced heat and tough conditions in the past, but COVID-19 poses new threats.
It has been really difficult for us to adapt to this situation in the pandemic because in our jobs, most of the time we have to be relatively close and sometimes even do our work outside the designated areas we are used to.
Now she is also an organizer for United Farm Workers, working to educate members in the Madera area on safety and workplace rights.
We are distributing cloth masks, disposable masks, some masks that have some similarity to N95 masks and are specifically made for the smoke.
California agricultural officials say farm workers helped produce over a third of all vegetables and 2/3 of the fruits and nuts that are available in the U.S. in 2019. Union and non-union workers are working to stay safe without affecting the American food supply during the pandemic. Líderes Campesinas, which translates to farm working leaders, is a female-led advocacy group that promotes agricultural workers' rights for women in California.
We have been able to work to identify problems within the workplace, especially those that are not acknowledged.
From raising safety awareness among farm workers to distributing masks to protect them from the pandemic and smoke from wildfires, these women work to protect their community.
To continue waking up day by day with that motivation to keep fighting and letting others know that we can achieve all that we want if we put our mind and fight for it. To help someone else is the biggest satisfaction you could ever have. To know that other people are learning because of you, that they can communicate better and find help easier than before.
Governor Gavin Newsom deemed farm workers to be essential workers back in April and has since described the area Mota works in as an area of concern. Unlike in California, no exact numbers have been reported for Yuma, Arizona, the major producer of lettuce. There have been about 143 COVID-19 cases that have occurred near the farm fields.
Si aquí tenemos problemas y los trabajadores tienen, tú sabes, batallan, sufren, olvídate en los otros estados. Esta es como la gloria.
Like many immigrants, they came to find a change for themselves and their families.
Like everyone, looking for a better life, better opportunities.
What they found instead is a new struggle and new fears.
Before, it was the American dream. Now, what is it for us? I don't know whether to call it an American dream or a nightmare because of what we're living through.
According to the National Center for Farm Worker Health, an estimated 49% of horticultural workers lack work authorization in the U.S. This means that at least half of the workers do not have access to unemployment benefits. In Los Angeles, I'm Patty Vicente, Cronkite News.
Operations at the north rim of the Grand Canyon are transitioning, according to park officials. Starting October 19th, the north rim will begin day-use operations. That means the Grand Canyon Lodge and overnight camping will end. But you can still travel to the canyon using State Route 67 until November 30th. However, the first major snowstorm of the season could push that day up.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.